Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are so excited to have our next guest joining us here today live, James W. Ramsey. We call him Jim. He's excited to have us here and vice versa to talk more about his marriage counseling services and all that he has to offer. So let me have Jim Ramsey introduce himself. Say hello.
Hi, it's so good to be with you again, Jill. I always enjoy
Aw,
these interviews.
same here. Tell us a little bit about what you do and where you're from.
Well, I've lived in Montana since I was 33, so I got most of the California stink off of me, I guess, that length of time. So I enjoy Montana. It's very peaceful, and I love the people here. But I enjoy being in California. I love
Right.
the ocean. But
Aw,
it's just the main thing I like to do is just help people save their marriages.
yeah.
I hate to see anybody get divorced.
Hence the name of the company, Aletheia Marriage Counseling Services. And what does Aletheia mean again?
It's a Greek word for truth or reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to deal with reality if we're going to get anywhere with a relationship. Kind of get down to what's real. Yeah.
Just want to let you know, and our listeners, how can we contact you? Could you share your contact information specifically, Jim?
You can get me on email at jimramseymt@gmail.com. Or if you want to call me, you can. If you don't catch me live, I'll pick up the message and call you. My phone number is 406 370 3515.
Perfect. And by the way you spell Aletheia, Aletheia, marriagecounseling.com. All right. Well, we've had some great conversation and continue to do so. And for today, let's just talk about marriage in general, right? Because that's the topic here, and you're helping people save their marriages. But a lot of us have differences. So let's talk about some ways we could deal with differences and, what are some of these differences in general? And we're going to get to so much more today.
Well, I think it's really important when people are dating each other, they need to ask each other a lot of questions and do a lot of things together. So you get beyond just being attracted and being sexual with each other. You want to get down to really knowing somebody, knowing their family, knowing their siblings, knowing about their background, school, and college, and have some idea pretty much about how compatible you are. Now, having done that, you obviously have differences that you need to learn how to appreciate rather than react to. The thing that people get into without even realizing it is we resent the way somebody's different than we are. And it's always who's right and who's wrong. And in marriage problems, the big thing is who's the bad guy. And there is no bad guy. There's some bad systems. There's bad ways of doing things. And when you get that straight, then you can get after fixing things. But otherwise, they're always mad at each other, hurt by each other, and it's a vicious circle, and it really leads to disaster.
Well, also, just in general, what are some of these differences that people go through being husband and wife? Is it just
Well,
gender related or is it communication related? Is it, how does this work?
well, I think it all starts with that generally we have some significant differences in the way we're constructed. Our brains are different. Their brains were similar at the beginning of gestation, but midway through, testosterone came in the picture for the baby boy and destroyed much of the corpus callosum, which connects
Ah,
the left and right hemispheres of the brain. And when that happens, the male is able to go away from the emotions, go to the left
mm-hmm.
side and be rational and calm and reasonable and so forth. The thing with the woman that's difficult, men don't fully appreciate, is they have to use all their brain all the time. They can't get away from emotions. And so when you begin to realize that, then they're dealing with a different kind of problem than we are. And
Mm-hmm.
men insist on them doing things the way we do, which is very calmly and very reasonably and goal oriented and so forth, which is really important. And it's important to put your two sides together when you're together. Benefit
Mm-hmm.
from her awareness of a lot of things you're not aware of, especially nonverbal things, how somebody looks, how they sound, how they act, all kinds of things about reading people. Women are very good at. So they're all about how connected we are as a couple. And the man is kind of oblivious to much of that. And he's kind of shocked by and upset by the emotional reactions a woman has about this, that, or the other that he doesn't even think exist because he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
see them until he learns to focus. Now, once a man learns to cue in on nonverbals, then he begins to learn better how to read people. Now, some men are better than that than others, but the ones that are detectives and business managers and so forth, they're trained to do this because EQ is so important in so many ways. But husbands generally don't get training in EQ until they run into problems and then they maybe see a therapist. But once you understand what's going on, it's pretty easy to fix it. But you have to tune in on what they're seeing and what they're feeling and why they're feeling it. And be careful not to discount what she has. She's
Yeah.
bringing important information into the relationship that you need
Mm-hmm.
to value and
Yeah.
hear and act upon.
Now, let's also be honest. When it comes to relationships, I'm not married. I've never been married, but I'm using this in my head as a relationship, and it goes hand in hand with those that are married. It's a little different when you're just in a relationship, but I always find the person that I'm with, there are some triggers to each of us, right? And we all have our different backgrounds, our different emotional upbringings, our different views, our different. And sometimes when someone says something to me, it'll trigger me about my parenthood, my parents growing up and my childhood, I should say. But not everybody understands that's a trigger for me. So, how do you
Right.
deal with negative emotional triggers?
Well, Jill, the first thing we have to do is recognize what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Are triggers. There are things that happen, there are things that are said, but often it's the way you look, the tone of voice, your body
Yep.
language, all kinds of things trigger people.
Yep.
Volume's a big thing for women. And
Yep.
appearing to be angry when maybe he's just frustrated. He's trying to make a point, but
Mm-hmm.
he's bigger and he's louder and his come across is too affrontive for you. And
Okay.
so, and then if you grew up in a family where you had a very strong, dominant father,
Mm-hmm.
just ruled the roost. Anytime the husband or boyfriend starts acting anywhere like the father, you get triggered. Here we go again, you
Yep.
know. And so the trick is to just discern what's true about the trigger and what's not true. For example, most of the times we're having a misunderstanding. The
Yep.
research at the Gottman Institute says in one of the pages there, after all this stuff we've studied, all these things, most marital problems are based on misunderstanding. And most misunderstandings have to do with being triggered and not knowing what to do about the trigger.
Okay.
You got to find out what's going on. So if you think that somebody is being mean to you or unfair or unkind or don't want to be with you, you need to check that out. Could you tell, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying here. Can you tell me what do you mean? And it just
Mm-hmm.
that, well, if they start elaborating, oh, they don't mean they don't want to be with me. They're under a little time pressure or this or
Yep.
that. And or you can say, I don't think you meant it this way, but it kind of sounds like, or you kind of look like this or that. What are you feeling? You want to activate curiosity. Both
Yeah.
male and female need to be curious about the other person, not assuming things. You do not want to assume anything bad about each other. Always assume the best. And if something isn't the best, then it may be a misunderstanding or they're having a bad day or you're overreacting to what they're saying. But checking it out stops most conflict. This is huge.
Got it. I just wrote it down about don't assume. I'm taking notes from you as well, Jim. Thank you so much. And let's talk about, how do couples successfully relate to each other's preferred way of communicating?
Well, first of all, you got to understand that there's a preference. Most men like to talk about things, activities, projects. You know, they're more into goals and into action. They're not really that much into talking about conversations in detail, like so and so
Mm-hmm.
said so and so, and so and so said so and so, blah, blah, blah. Women are much more into relational stuff. They're much more into what people feel and what people say to each other, how they're getting along, how their baby's doing, how their aunt's doing, all kinds of stuff like
Yep.
that. That's the average man. If you give me the summary in less than a minute, that's fine, but don't go into all the details. I don't want to know the whole party that you were at,
Mm-hmm.
everything that everybody did, but women want to talk about what's important to them.
Yeah.
So it's very important if I'm a man, particularly your husband, I need to be sensitive to what you want to talk about and be the very most curious I can possibly be, because otherwise it tends to be insulting. It just tends to be, you don't care about me or what I think or what I feel. And I don't want to give that message. So I need to be aware of that and alert to it. On the other hand, a man does things with a girlfriend. He takes her on dates. Those are actions. Those are things. That's
Yeah.
going someplace, doing something. And so the average wife gets to the point where they just kind of want to be home. They want to be home. And, if you're going to do something, you've got to sit and talk. Well, see, for a woman, talking is eye contact. You sit and look at each other and you talk. Men don't feel comfortable doing that by and large. They prefer to talk sitting by side in a pickup truck or in a boat or something,
Or
or
at a
sit
bar,
or in a bar. Yeah,
not to sit at the table. And I never understood that. I'm like, but I want to sit at a table. I want to look across from you. I want to talk to you. I
that's
don't want
right.
you next to me. My head's going to hurt by talking to you all night. But
Got it. That's
that's
exactly right.
interesting. I didn't know
Big,
that was just a
big
man.
difference. Big
Really?
difference. In fact, this whole thing about eye contact is apparent when they're babies. A little boy, a 2 or 3 year old boy. If you look right into his eyes, he'll look to the side. You look at right into the eyes of a little girl, she looks right at you and gazes at you. Same thing with babies. You look at a 3 or 4 month old baby in a crib, look right in their eyes, a little boy will divert his eye. And that has to do with it's arousing. It's kind of confrontive to be looked right at. You look at this in predatory animals, you don't want to look a bear in the eye.
Wow.
You want
See,
to look away.
I have a 7 and 9 year old, and I try to teach them the importance of eye contact. I said, when you talk to someone, always look at them in the eye. When you order, if we're at, Applebee's out to dinner, you say, "Excuse me, ma'am, could I please have?" And I
Yes,
always make them make eye contact. And my son's always like this.
very
I'd say he's
important.
nervous and shy, but I'm trying to tell him it's so important to have eye contact, not realizing that maybe it's a genetic thing with the
Just
male
on
and
the
female.
research, they found there is a difference. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't learn
Yeah.
the importance of eye contact and do
Yeah.
it. But I'm just saying that by just naturally speaking, you're more inclined not to have eye contact.
Interesting.
Huh.
Wow. I love this. I'm learning so much from you. Okay, okay. So, what were we talking about? Oh, the communication. Let me just ask you, do you believe in the five languages of love? Right? Is that true? We all have one language?
Yeah, I think you could go probably beyond five, but yeah, that's a very helpful book, and it helps people to realize that you're kind of on different wavelengths. Things are kind of different to different people,
Mm-hmm.
mean more. Acts of love is a very meaningful thing to some people. They want behavior. I would say women are very big on behavior,
Yeah.
and you can talk and tell them all this, but what do? You tell her how beautiful it is, how much she loves you, and you go out there and their muddy boots are on the carpet. What's that say?
Mm-hmm.
Actions speak louder than words for women.
Yeah,
Men don't.
I'm acts of service. That's when I did the quiz. I like my man, my spouse, my partner, whoever it's in my life to be that kind person to help me and to help me, help me around the house. Maybe because I've always been single and I've always have a lot of time, but I'm like, could you help me with my car? Like, sure, I'll help you with your car. Acts of service. I'm like, that's what I need.
Now, what you said just now is so, so important. You did something that many women have a hard time doing. You ask for something for yourself.
Yeah.
Women generally do for everybody, but they feel awkward in asking for anything for themselves. Now, if you want a man to be happy and a man to feel good about himself, you ask him for what you want, and then you're very happy and pleased with what he did. That means I was successful. I made her happy. You want to help your husband be successful because that makes him feel like he's a success. He wants to be around you. It makes him feel good. But if you're always emotional and you're always on his case about stuff, he starts getting the idea, well, I can't please her. She's always upset with me.
Wow.
I mess up all the time. And his
Yes.
behavior is a reaction to what he thinks you
Yes.
did. It's all perception. It's all trigger.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Can I just ask in particular, normally if you do that test, are people like a hybrid of each one? And how do is there certain people that shouldn't go together? Like I'm not sure what the love languages means. I know you know what you like, what you want, but you also have to understand what they like and what they want, right?
Yeah, the love language book is not about a test per se. I maybe
Okay.
maybe they have a little quiz, but no, it's just a matter of helping you to be wise about how to express your love to someone else. Your tendency is to express what you like,
Mm-hmm.
not what is their favorite.
Got it.
And once you start learning about what their languages are, what they like, then you
Mm-hmm.
try to express your affection and your love in their language. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Let's take it a step further.
Go
On a
for it.
larger scale, you have two languages. You have a male way of talking and a woman way of talking.
Yes.
The thing there is you need to understand there is a difference, and I need to respect it. And I need to respond to it, learn how to talk with them, listen to them. You may not get the language down, but you need to at least be able to understand the language and react appropriately to the language. And as you honor each other's languages, as it were, she's more emotional, you're more rational, then you can move freely between the languages. I can speak more emotionese, if you will, than some men would, because I understand it and I know what it's all about. And same thing with women, being able to be simpler and clear about what they say and kind of cut to the chase and talk objectively.
Mm-hmm.
That's appreciated by men.
Yeah.
But you can't be putting each other down because you do it differently. You need to learn that other language and hear it and
Okay.
understand it.
All right. Well, let's go over, the most common emotional problems that people as couples do have and how to deal with them the right way.
Well, I think the first thing is you keep coming back to curiosity. Curiosity is so important because it's focusing on the other person. Why are they saying this? Why are they acting this way? Rather than assuming they're mad at me or they don't want to be with me or they're impatient with me or they wish they were somewhere else or they wish they were somebody else with somebody else. People make all kinds of assumptions and get upset. So the big thing is you want to avoid being
Mm-hmm.
upset because what these are vicious circles.
Yeah.
When she becomes emotional, he often shuts down because he thinks he's failing.
Yeah.
And if I talk more, I'm going to make her more emotional. If I try and
Yeah.
help her, I make her upset more. And so then she looks at him. He's not talking now. Well, he
Mm.
doesn't even care about how I feel. These are all assumptions, and they're not correct. You see, even the vicious circle, he's stonewalling. 85% of men stonewall when they get flooded. Well, what's stonewalling? Well, to her, he doesn't want to listen to me. He doesn't want to be here. You ask
He
him,
doesn't
I don't
care.
want to make it worse. I'm trying, I love her. I don't want to get any deeper into this thing,
Ah,
you know? And so the more we are curious and compassionate and not defensive and reactionary, the better it's going to be for us. This is huge.
any advice on how to deal with this? I mean, and because couples do become emotionally disengaged and a little lonely. So how do we reconnect and keep this emotion and connection and get that connection back?
Okay, well, it's more than one step, but the one
Yeah,
thing,
sorry. I
well,
blended two things together.
one thing you could do when you realize that you're getting emotionally disengaged and lonely, you need to think about what you did at the beginning, how much you talked, how much you laughed, how much you did the things alone, how much you did with friends, and kind of get back into some of the things you did before all the pressure of children and work and money came in the picture. That's one thing. And then you begin to design in your day time to be alone. You want to have lunch with her once a week. You want to have breakfast together before you go to work. You want to sit out on the deck in the sunset. You got to do some things differently than what you got into a bad habit doing.
Mhm.
Now, having said that, you start paying real attention to her. This is my lifelong best friend.
Yeah.
I really want to know what she thinks about this, what she thinks about that, and vice versa. I want to know what things happen to him. Now, sometimes a wife gets frustrated because he wants to talk what he did at work. You
Yeah.
want to know how he felt at work and what happened
Hmm.
between him and the boss or this sort of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. and to kind of start with where they're at as friends, but then you can kind of ask questions and gently get into things that are more important to each of you. But boy, there's work to be done. And
Mm.
we're in trouble in our culture because we have too many things distracting us and we're not turning toward each other anywhere near enough.
Yeah, I mean, right. I mean, I'm sorry, but we're always on our devices, our tablets, our phones. There's a lot of that, right? There's so
Yeah.
much of that. It's so different. It's not like the old days where you come home and yeah, you have a TV that you don't watch TV when you eat dinner. You don't watch TV when you go to bed. It's just in the TV room and you have TV time sometimes. But now it's TV's in every room and it's distraction. And now it's the cell phones and the work carries on into the home. There's a lot.
It's very, very damaging. A person's got to realize, wow, this is messing up my kids. This is messing up our family. We have to make some changes here. And
Yeah.
one of the changes is sit down at a table together and look at each other and talk to each other during meals. Don't have the
Hmm.
TV on during the meal. I mean, it's a very small group that actually sit down anymore and eat together at a table. And that's just basic, you know. I had my had company here last week. My daughter, my wife's daughter, and two girls. The four of them just chattered all through the meal, every meal, laughing and kidding each other. And I said, "What a healthy family!
Aw.
What a great thing this was!" You know.
Well, let's talk about some of the connection to making a healthy marriage. Like the Gottman research we've talked about says connection is the foundation to a healthy marriage, right? So they also talk about turning toward and turning away. Could you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Well, the turning toward and turning away are terms that they used to kind of describe how you connect. See, connecting is anytime you're relating to this other person, you're answering a question they asked, or you're asking a question, or you're noticing that they're tired, or you're noticing they're picking up something heavy, you want to help. You know, anything that turns you toward each other and engages you physically or verbally or emotionally, that's connecting.
Mm-hmm.
And every time you connect, you're putting money in your emotional bank account as a couple. Every time you turn away and go out and do other things and connect with other people, you're actually taking money out of your emotional bank account and putting it somewhere else. And a lot of couples have overdrawn emotional bank accounts. There's very little in the house. There's very little being deposited in that relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
then they wonder why they develop friendships and why they ultimately begin to be tempted to be emotionally connected and sexual with somebody else. It's because they're out there relating to them about their favorite.
Yep.
They're doing stuff with them, laughing about them, having the inside jokes with them, and they come home tired and want to go to bed, you know. So it's a danger. It's a big danger. People have to understand you've got to know what's going on and do something about this.
So true. Well, what about I'm just the whole intimacy thing, right?
Mhm.
There's two separate types. So when I think intimacy, I think like sexual relations, but then there's also intimacy of the mind. Are those the two types you're talking about that relate to each other, or is it something else? I'm curious.
No, it's basically emotional and physical.
Okay, so go ahead, elaborate. What
Emotional,
did you have in mind?
and the women really need to have that emotional connection. They need to
Got it.
have you intimacy. So intimacy for a woman is I'm interested in what you're thinking, what you're feeling. I want to know you. I want to see you. I want to hear you. I want to know you. That's where women live. And when a man does that, they warm to you, they want to be with you, they like you, doing things with you, and then they're receptive to physical intimacy. But a man in this culture, it's all about physical intimacy. If she's a babe, you go up there and
Yeah.
make a move on her, and that's uncool. She doesn't know you from Jack, you know. And this is it's just not the way it should be. So as you relate to a woman in a way that's appropriate for a woman, they respond appropriately for you. But you both have to honor the fact there's heads and tails. Heads is looking, listening, and seeing. Tails is tails. That's the
Okay.
sexual end of it. But you got to have both. If you have, especially with a woman, if they don't have the emotional part, the physical part starts to become a problem. They begin to feel used and abused. It's not good.
Yeah, I just saw my cousin who's been married for 2.5 years. Her father passed away to my uncle, and I saw her just yesterday at the wake. And her and her husband, after 2 years, she's 32. They're sleeping in separate beds. I'm like, what? I had no idea they were having problems.
Yeah,
She's like, yeah. I'm like, are you guys still intimate? She says, he tries. I won't be. She's like,
we
we
are.
don't even talk. I'm like, so the
There you
man I know
go.
is always coming in. Like I refer to like the male cat. I have a male and a female cat. So I always think about the male cats. Like I'm like, they're usually not all cases, but a little more aggressive when it comes to that. And I feel like males do have more hormones that want that more than a female. And she's like, nope, that stopped. She's like, we sleep in separate beds and we're not going through a good time anymore. And I'm just shocked to hear after 2 years, her marriage is going downhill. And that lack of everything, let alone intimacy, but it happens. They just
It
stop
happens.
communicating, they stop talking, and I'm like, what? I'm just in shock. I don't even know the details, but I'm just a couple that I thought would be so happy and so amazing after 2 years already.
Yeah, because the fundamentals are not being observed. They're not aware of what they're doing and not doing. It's so sad. And I'm telling you, there's majority of people are not really happy with each other in our culture because they're so spread out and they're not doing the things they need to do to feel like partners and to really feel loved and lover. You know, it's just unhealthy.
Yeah.
And it's not like you have to redivide everything. It's not you can have a huge change, but you've got to do some fundamental things differently. And when that's done, you begin to make headway.
Well, you
Another
also, well,
thing,
isn't it now like most marriages are ending by like year 7?
Yes, half of
What's
divorces
going
happen.
on? Yeah, what happens at that 7-year mark?
Okay, that's a very good question. What's happening before 7 years is before children, generally. You're just footloose and fancy free. You're having fun. You're going to the bar. You're going here. You're going there. Anytime, eating pizza 2 in the morning, whatever. Just have a big time.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you have a child, and then you have another child. You have whatever you. Okay, children are absolutely dependent. You have to put them first, or they might die. And so that's a shock to a young person that's been doing what they want, having fun, very, very egocentric and whatever. And so the Gottman Institute realized this is what's going on. So we have to have a course for young couples who are going to have their first kid, bringing baby home. And the whole purpose of this is to prepare them for the reality that this is going to be challenging. It's going to be a bonding experience for the two of you. Something that's going to be more important to you than each other. You're going to have to take care of this child together. And if they have the right attitude and go at it the right way, their love is deeper. They have happy children. Things go well. But otherwise, they have unmet expectations. And
Well,
they get angry and hurt with each other.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I've heard other people, and I've never agreed with this, but people that are counselors say, even though you have children, you have to make your spouse the most important. And I've always said, what? How is that possible? The child has to come first. And then you hear people say, no, the relationship must come first. And I just could never agree with that.
Well, they both have to be. It's interesting. It's kind of a dance, but
Uh-huh.
I would say that a healthy marriage is couple centered, not child centered. You are the loving part of that family.
Yeah.
You are the model for them. You're helping everybody to be healthy. Okay, you've got to be healthy as a couple.
Got it.
But at first, when they're little babies, you've
Mhm.
got to be healthy in that you're unselfish.
Yeah.
You are shoulder to shoulder, taking care of that little kid, changing the diapers, feeding them, holding them. Middle of the night, it's not just her job. She's got to get up and work all day with the kid. How about you getting up in the middle of the night too? You change diapers, you walk the floor, you do, both of you. And then you look at each other, whew, we made it through another day. And you'll find out all we're talking about for a few years is just kids. That's normal. But you also go out and have dinner together or lunch together. You have babies.
Still have to make that time. Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to talk a little more about that next time. And I also, for our next show, would like to talk about extramarital affairs, because a lot of times that happens. Some people digress to others. And is it possible to recover from this? I want to hear all about that for next time. Jim, is that okay?
That's all right. And they can recover.
Good.
It's not unfixable at all. It can be fixed.
Well, that's good news to hear. So a little teaser for next week's show and Aletheia Marriage Counseling Services. Jim Ramsey, how can we contact you?
Well, you go to my website, AlethiaMarriageCounseling.com. You can call me on my phone, 406-370-3515.
Beautiful.
And however you contact me, I will want to talk with you and make sure that we're a good fit and we can really work together. So,
all right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. You have a fantastic day and glad we got to connect. It was a pleasure having our 30 minutes today. Have a great day, Jim. All right.
Thank you.
I'm proud. We did really well today. Thank you so much. And thank you to Mark. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.